And I'm just ready to introduce our guest today, which is Emil Hvitfeldt. He is a software engineer here at Posit, and he's going to be talking to us about advent of code. And I'm super, super excited about it. Emil, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for introducing me. Yeah, so I'm a software engineer on the tidy models team, mostly thinking about how to make modeling as easy and pleasant as possible, but also like to do like fun things on the side. Like I do a lot of puzzles and such, which is where Advent of Code like has a little bit of a intersection between coding and like puzzles. So
Your
I'm
puzzle
excited
obsession.
to be
I
here.
love
Yeah.
puzzles too. I'm a big like mystery person, but also a physical puzzle person. Okay, we are going to be talking about advent of code today. Um, we are going to hop into screen sharing very soon. I'm going to share my screen really quickly first and just show you what advent of code even looks like. I'm going to share. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen right now, and you can see I have just gone to adventofcode.com. The only other thing I have up here is our Slido, and it is a blank base of a Christmas tree with numbers next to it. And it's got a login button because I am not logged in. I've literally never done Advent of Code in my entire life. It kind of looks like a console screen. And if I click login, it will give me some different options. So I could log in with GitHub. I will do that in just a second. But you can go through any of these. I think Google is probably the easiest one. If you have never used Advent of Code before, there are some places you can go. I'm going to let Emil walk through that, but I just wanted you to see what it looks like before you're logged in. Maybe we can all log in together. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand this over to Emil. Um, oop, there we go.
Yes. All right. Yeah.
All
So
right,
this is
Emil, give us the tour really quickly first of like
yes.
what we can see before we dive in.
Yes. So this is then what Admiral Toad will look like once you're logged in, and it will be we have uh there's a line per day. So this year they're only creating 12 puzzles, where normally it was 25, which is it's a lot in December. So this is the 11th year. So he decided to only do 12 for this year, which is going to be perfectly fine. And each one opens up on midnight in like New York. So you can see here the third day will open up in a little bit less than 12 hours. But there's a lot more information in here. We can also, if we click on the year, oh no, if we click on the events, we can see previous years. So here, if we go to like 2026, no, oh, 2016, this is what I've done so far. So each day has two parts to it. So you can open up a day and it will describe a question and with a prompt and everything. And once you have answered that correctly, part two opens up.
Is
And
that a train? This is amazing. This is like
yes,
beautiful
it's some of these
artwork.
are like real fun. Yeah. So like here we can see on 22, I was only able to do part one. And then if we say, yeah, so oh, I finished part one. Now part two, and then like more information comes in, but I wasn't able to do part two of that specific day.
Okay, so
So
each of these stars is a part. So on day
yes,
22, you only did part one, but on day 21, you did both parts.
yeah, and I skipped 17 for some reason. And
Okay.
that's like another thing. You can do them out of order as well. So it's only about they're all time locked for like when it is because the leaderboard is only based on time. And the official leaderboard is really hard because it's like everyone in the world. And the first person to do it, that's 100 points. The second person, that's 99, and so on and so forth. So you only
Okay.
get a point if you're in the top 100 people
Okay.
to
And
answer any
we had a
any
question
of
I
them.
saw in the Discord, which I think is interesting because I have the same one, which is like, does that ASCII art build itself as the code puzzles get completed? Like whether you complete the day or not?
So good question. So here's like 15, which I fully did. So you can see like it's all nice and nice. But if we then do 23, it's only building up somehow as far as you went.
Okay.
But this one's also a weird one because this is not a chronological year. So like they're jumping up and down a little bit. So the art is changing over time. And
Okay.
so there's a lot of fun things happen. But we'll be doing day
So I made
one.
the assumption that this might be the bottom of a Christmas tree because I've seen Christmas trees before, but this looks like it's
Mm,
probably something else.
yeah, and so we don't know yet, right? So because we're only the 2 days in and we haven't filled in any of the days. Um yeah, so I think we can just and
Yeah.
also one thing that you can do too is if you click on leaderboard, you
Lauren
can
actually made a good point that it's the leaderboard is disabled this year because he decided it was a
yes.
little too competitive.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we had some where people are very fast. Like especially day one because it starts off being easier and then harder and harder, where some people answer the first question in like 1 minute. And there
Ooh.
are like techniques to do it harder. And I'll explain a little bit what people do to improve the speed, but also a lot of people stream them doing Advent of Toad on Twitch, and it's very fascinating because people are really fast. But there's also you can also do personal leaderboards or like private leaderboards. So if everybody have an ID, so you can share it with your colleagues or your friends, and then you are all on like a leaderboard with other people.
All right, I just
So
shared Tan's leaderboard in
yes, it is.
the Discord chat for everybody.
So this is the one. So and now it's based on the same idea of how calculating the numbers, but you're not competing with the world. You're competing with like 100 of your friends, which makes it a lot more doable.
All right,
All
sweet.
right, so let's get started. So so day one is a little bit more verbose because it's explaining what happens. But generally, it's a wall of text and it will explain what it is. So here, the elves have bad news because they discovered the project management, which giving them some tools to like deal with Christmas emergencies. And there's a story going on that doesn't do anything other than being fun, right? So we need to help them decorating the North Pole by December 12th. And we collect stars, and it's 2 puzzles per day. Each puzzle is a star. And so like you did 24 in total. So this is mainly just explaining what it is. This is only a day one. And then it starts. And it starts with like the story. So here we have that we're arriving at the secret entrance at the North Pole base, ready to start decorating. Unfortunately, the password seems to have changed. And you type it in, and we have a document explaining what happened. Due to new security protocols, the password is locked in the safe below. Please see the attached document for the new combination. So we have a safe with a dial, and we can turn it left and right. And it has the numbers 0 through 99 on it. And it makes a little clip every time it reaches a number. And the attached document, which is our puzzle input, which let's just see right now. So if you're logged in, everybody gets their own puzzle input. So like I can dip mine and it looks something like this. It's a long list of some text.
Does that open in a different tab? I'm gonna go click it.
I don't think it opens in a different one. Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
That's our puzzle input, and it's a sequence of rotations and one line by line, and it's how to open the safe.
Okay, wait.
So yes,
Pause. Does everybody get the same input?
people get different inputs, but I do believe there's duplicates.
Okay. So probably not an
So
infinite number of combinations, but
no,
ours will probably not look like Emil's, which is
yeah,
great because then we don't have the solution completely spoiled for us, right?
because at the end of it, I'll run some code based on this input, and it will give me an integer, and I have to put that in my answer and submit it.
Okay.
And like so, it's not. I know this won't be zero. So if I put zero and submit, it will be like, hey, that's not right. So it will tell you. Uh, I feel like sometimes it like gives a little bit of a hint if you're wrong in a very specific way.
Okay.
It's be like, oh, did you remember to turn it left too, or something like that? But in general, we just say it's not right. And it has some delay on it. So if you spam it, you start having to wait like a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes to be able to resubmit. So you can't just trial and error it. You have to actually do it.
You can't just warmer or colder it. Kieran
No.
says that it'll sometimes tell you, like, "Ooh, your answer is a little too high," right? Or
Yeah.
it might
So
give you
sometimes it's
feedback based on your
helpful,
answer.
but sometimes it's not. And yeah. So here we just have is so our possible input looks something like this. Ooh, no, no. So it has a L on R for left and right, and then a number next to it. And it is describing whether to turn it left or whether to turn it right. And here left means lower numbers and right means higher numbers. And how much to rotate it by is the value itself. And then he always includes like examples and instructions. So here it says if we started at 11 and it was a R8, it would mean we turn it right 8 times until we hit 19. And likewise, if we, oh, 19. And if it says L 19, we would go back to zero. So it has some examples we can play with. And here we also have that it's circular. So if we're at zero and we go down one, we go back up to 99. And if we're at 99 and go up, we go back down to zero. So we have to like remember that. And then a very important thing is we start at 50.
Okay.
So,
Gosh, I
but
was really bad at my locker combination as, as a young person, so this is already challenging my brain. Let's
yes,
keep
this
going.
is the extreme version of that. So, like, we can conceptually imagine that we probably have to turn the knob according to the instructions, right? So we probably start at 50 and then we need to write some code that simulates turning this knob left and right a number of times. So, but here it has the what how we actually find out what our answer needs to be because we can follow the instructions, but the actual password is the number of times the dial is left pointing at zero after we rotate the sequence. So then he has an example, which I will copy in as my input.
Okay, so
But
you just copy this
I copied
test.
this little example because then we
Okay.
can verify that it gives the answers that it should. And hopefully this will be enough.
All right. And then are you working in Positron?
Yes, I'm working in Positron.
Okay, so did you paste it into just like a text file?
Yeah. So what I do is I here just added a just a folder that has two files in it. It has input and day. Like so I have it's just a normal text file, nothing fancy. Because then when I'm in here, I can do read lines of oh that's not oh read lines.
Yeah,
So I
that
can just
capital L
and
in an R.
and there is an incomplete file line. So now I have my input in a neat way, and then once we have solved this like test case, I'll do that in here and copy paste this, like the real input over.
Okay. In the
And
same
it's just
way.
like, and we know one thing to note that might be useful later is I'm also noticing some 3-digit numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
So that just might be, that doesn't show up here. So that we might need to remember to think about that going on. And we know here that the sample points to 0 3 times. And
Okay. Is there one
so,
more way to save this? Can you like right click that link and save it as a TXT file or something?
uh, uh,
Save link as maybe? I
maybe,
bet there's
well,
multiple ways to do this because you could also
yes,
like
that
save
probably
this
is.
as like a string as an
Oh,
object, right?
yeah, when you're in here, you can save this file as something, I think.
Kieran says option click it on Mac, which is
Mm.
a good tip.
All right, yeah. This is how I always do it because I don't like, I care about the speed, but I'm also not fast enough to
Yeah.
actually care about speed. Because so the way you do this, if you care about speed and you want to win, is you read from the bottom up because it's more likely that like you can infer what happens. Because already with these left and right, if you're already in puzzle mind mode, it seems kind of obvious what's happening here. And then you see this highlighted this is the answer. We already know that. So you can just skim through bottom up. Here we see, oh, this seems important that is looping. Let's try it right away. So you don't actually read the whole thing. You read enough to get an idea of what it is. And those people don't try it out first. They use the real input and send it in right away
All
because it's
right.
all about speed, especially
Well,
in the first couple of days.
we're
We're
not
not
going to
doing
be
that.
about speed today. We're going to be about friendly introductions and talking about how we think through this, um, and having fun. Reminder, you can ask questions in the
Yes.
Slido directly to me. I'm also looking at the Discord server. If you just ask in the Discord channel, I will probably see it there. It's much easier to monitor the Discord when we don't have 250 people like we do at the Hangout. So Discord is probably okay today.
And so I'm just loading tidyverse here because like I'm seeing strings. We probably want to do like some string stuff to pull things up. There's other ways of handling this. You can do it whatever you want. I do it in R. A lot of times I end up doing base R related things, but you can do whatever you want. You can code according to speed. You can code according to elegant solution, trying something new. You can do whatever you want. It's all about having fun, really. So, do you want me to try something? What do you think we should do, Libby? Now that we
Um,
have our input.
this is a good question. I have been in the Discord chat not paying attention, but also the first thing I would do personally is what Isabella did, which is I would get a pen and paper out and just start drawing things because yeah, I can't visualize anything in my head at all. I don't have that ability. So the first thing I would do would be to take a bunch of notes because the things that like you highlighted that line that was like, this is really important. And I didn't understand it fully. It was like the number of times it goes back to 0 is the number of sequences.
Yes. So if we go back here to let's show the example. So we start at 50 and then we execute L68, which rotates 50. Like we take 50 minus 68, which is minus 18, which then loops back around to 82. So at the end of the first turn, we're at 82.
Okay.
Then we are rotating one more time, 30 to the left, which is minus. Now we're at 52.
Okay.
And then and so it just continues, and we notice that some of the times it ends like we end up at 0. And
Okay,
that is what
so
we're interested in. We want to count how many times 0 happens.
then I would create a basic loop with a counter object for hitting 0. And I would create a conditional statement that says, like, if counter equals 0, like if the product of this thing equals 0, the product of this like math equals 0, then tick the counter, like, plus plus 1, right? It was whatever you
Yeah.
would do. And then
Yeah.
have a little thing that's like, do this, do it the whole way through. It's not like a while loop or whatever. It's like the whole way for
Yes.
the thing because
Oh,
we want to count every single line.
yes. So let's try that. So I'm setting a counter for zeros. I'm setting a position that we will move around. I'm writing out full names because we're not going fast. And I will also pre-format this a little bit because the we have the direction and the values. And we can easily pull these out before the loop instead of inside the loop because R is vectorized. So we can do direction, and we can use the string sub function from a stringer, what is it, input, and give me the first element of the string, like the first character. So here we just have our vector of left and right.
Yeah, this is along the lines of what Noor was saying that she would do. She was like, my first
Oh,
thought's going to be parsing the data. So a column of direction and a column of number. And that is exactly what Emil is doing.
yeah.
He's got
Yeah.
one vector of directions and one vector of values.
And here, that's probably a better way of doing it, but I'm just saying give me the setting to the 1,000 value, which is it doesn't have here, but just a way of adding to the end. And I'm also turning them into integers because we know they're integers. So now we're in here and we can still loop over the input. So yeah, we will start it. So we say the position. So let's do it just real. So if direction of one is equal to left. So if the direction is left, we minus. So that means that we take the position, should be the position plus value of I.
Whoa, wait
No,
a minute.
no,
Did you just copy something and then move it down with
yeah.
a
So
shortcut? How do you do that?
if
I
you
never do these. And
so if you do shift option on a mat, it might be different other places. You can just like duplicate the torrent line.
okay,
So I
shift
use a lot for
option.
something like this, where you shift option and then you take your finger off shift, so you're only doing option because that lets you move a line around.
So option plus the up and down keys.
Yes.
This is
So
magic.
that's a
I'll
way
never
to.
remember this, but I had to ask.
So I think now we have like L, we're minusing the value, and we're remembering to add it to the original value. And then if position equals 0, we say zeros is zeros plus 1. So if we run this now, we get 2, which is not what they had. So
They
one
had
way we
three,
can,
right?
yeah, so they said they had 3. So something is wrong.
Okay.
So what we can do here is probably right here, we can print. We use the tab function where we are saying the position, and I'm adding a new line on it. So if we start it all over, oh, we are seeing some negative numbers right here.
We are,
And
and we
the,
need to go backwards down
yeah,
to
and
minus from
the
100.
and the and the reason why we're doing it wrong is because this minus 100 should have been a zero.
Yeah, yeah.
So that isn't being counted. So the way we can do this is we should manually like try to do the math, but that might be annoying because we noticed that the real puzzle input have three-digit stuff, and that's a little
Yeah.
bit of a pain.
And Lauren said it's negative 99 that is a zero. What number is it actually, everybody? Like
I don't know.
if we're at zero and we go 99 left, we end up at
No,
99. We have to go
yeah,
100 left to end up at zero, right?
yeah. So we could try to write this logic out, but I know, so there's this thing called the modulo operator,
Mm-hmm.
which is like division, like it's the remainder after division. And
Mm-hmm.
this happens to be exactly what we need here. So if we do persist, which is this double percent thing of 100. So that will take, if we run it, we now see that it does exactly what we need, because if we do 100 modulo 100, turns it back around into zero. And it also works if you do minus one of 90 mod 100, it turns it around to 99. So that's exactly what we needed in this specific instance. So we could have written this by ourselves, but we, like doing the math and if else and whatever to make sure we are looping correctly. But I think it's pretty obvious that he was alluding to using the modulo operator here. Which, and then if you didn't know it was a thing, this might have been hard and taken you a little bit longer.
Yeah. Modulo is one of those things that and for anybody who is listening and not looking at the Discord chat, modulo is like Modulo, modulo. There's no like R on the end of it. And it like if you wanted to test it, you could do like 10 modulo 3 would give you, I think, like one, right? Because you divide by three and it's just giving you the remainder only, which would be one after that division
Yeah,
process. So only your answer is only a remainder.
yeah.
Okay.
And it works perfectly for what we need for negative numbers as well, which is like what we need. So now we see that the zeros are correctly done here. So and that's what it had. And at a quick glance, these numbers were to the way to debugging. So now we just try. So this is what we do. We go in here, paste it in, and we see here that this was unlikely to be to do this by hand because my input is almost 4,500 left and rights.
Oh
So it's
my
very,
gosh. Okay.
yeah. So it's a lot of times it's also meant to be that you can't do them by hand. You can do the examples by hand, but it's very rarely you can do this part by hand.
Right. Yeah. And actually, when I was in school, we had to do a lot of things by hand. Like our tests, we weren't allowed to use computers for our programming tests. So we would be like writing out these loops and we would only have, it would only be like a maximum of 5 or 6 loops or whatever. We'd have to work it all out by hand,
Yeah.
which is actually a great way to write pseudocode and figure it out.
If we run it, and now I'm dating 11:05, and should we try to submit it and see what happens?
Let's do it.
It's right. Oh,
Oh,
it's right.
yay.
So we got one gold star. So this
Hooray.
is the exciting part because we haven't looked at what happens on day two, well, on part two here, right? And you have to do part one to see what happens. And this is where Advent of Code tries to mimic what it's like to do programming in the real world. Because now we have some code that does something. And now he's asking a new question. And it could be related to what we've done so far, right? So, but it's a little bit different. So you can mentally think about how can we change the like make this code future-proof, but you never know because you don't know what actually it could be. It could be we just need to count how many times it ends up back at 50, or how many times we're seeing the same value 2 times in a row, or we have a different starting position. But it could also be something crazy like all the R's me actually don't mean turn right. It means how many times to do the next instruction. Like it could be anything, like we don't know. So this is where sometimes you just have to change one value in your solution, and sometimes you have to rewrite the whole thing for part two.
All right, well, let's see what it is. And by the way, for anybody who is in the Discord chat right now, Kieran gave his solution to part one and two of day one. He shared his GitHub, and then Jenna also shared day one part one. So you can go check out the work of others. I think it's really an interesting way to learn, and especially like maybe you are learning Python right now and you are struggling, or you just want to see how other people do things. The solutions for Advent of Code is a great place to go see the way that different people think. Like Kieran said that he implemented Modulo himself, like maybe
Yeah.
from scratch, which I think is hilarious because I am constantly reinventing wheels that I don't know already exist. All right, let's do it. Let's
Yes.
look at part two.
So then I stemmed a little bit. So it talked earlier about up here that every when you turn the knob, you hear a little click.
Oh yeah, I do remember it said that.
Yeah.
I was
But
wondering if
now
that was
it's
going to be a part of this.
yeah. So that if you had that in mind, you might have written it a little bit different, right? Because now we have it said the actual password is not how many times we end up at zero after an instruction, it's how many times we're passing zero. Like for any time you turn a knob, just like if you turn it 50 times, you're turning it 50 increments. Anytime any of the increments hits zero, we're counting that.
Oh no, now I don't know how to think about this anymore in our code loop. I sometimes think like when things change like that, I just want to delete my entire loop and start it over because if I try to modify my existing one, I might make things harder for myself. It's like when you ask an LLM to write something for you and it's so bad that fixing it takes more time than writing it yourself from
Yeah.
scratch. What are you gonna
So,
do, Emil?
so what I normally do is I just copy all my code into a part two. So like this is my part one solution, and this will be my part two solution where I'll just do something. So I'm seeing two main ways of handling this. One of them is doing the math. So, right, so like we can do it two places. We can either do it around here, counting how many, like if we're, because like it's either going to be one or more. So can we count any times it's going to be more? So
Okay,
actually,
wait,
just
wait.
that. So like first, like if we have, if it turns by, if we're turning left, oh, but that doesn't work. No, because we're actually moving over it.
Yeah,
So,
it feels like if anybody
so,
has an idea here, please let us know. I know, Jenna, you said you were like still working on part two. If
so I
anybody
think
has
what
advice.
I will do it differently here by doing, so I'll move this up in. So instead of doing adding, like subtracting the value, I will do a new for loop with j in the value, and we're subtracting one instead. So instead of subtracting the whole value once, we are subtracting one that whole value of times.
That it doesn't make any sense to me, but keep going.
So here we instead of adding 15,
Like if it
If
was
if
L15.
if it was L15, instead of adding 15,
Okay.
we're adding 1 15 times.
Oh, so we can see once it passes a
Yeah.
threshold.
And then we're just moving this chatter
But Kieran says, what if you
inside.
land on 0?
But that's fine because that's what we want.
So if you land on 0, you get a click, but if you pass
Yes.
0, you get a click. What
Oh,
if
so it's
it's
only when you land it. So I might have been like, it's only,
I think it's when you pass 0, you get a click, right? Because if it was landing on 0, it would be the same answer as the first part, where we would only
uh,
land a certain number of
and
times.
so it's any plate that causes the dial to point at 0. So if we
Oh,
end
because
up
it
at
clicks
0,
every single time.
yeah.
If you ever end up at 0 for
Hmm.
any part of this. Okay.
And then
Oh, wait,
and
Isabella has a
what does
call
he
out.
find?
Isabella says, don't forget to check the warning at the bottom.
What warning?
What warning?
Where's the warning?
Oh, is it at the bottom of that says in
Yeah,
this example?
yeah, where it
Oh, be
says be
careful.
careful.
If the dial were pointing at 50, a single
Hmm.
rotation like R1000 would cause the dial to point at 0 10 times before returning back to 50. So it
Yes.
is just any time it passes 0.
Yeah. So this is starting to be like a lot of, so I'm hoping, no, I need to put this inside one more. So now what we're doing, this is basically the same topic twice, right? So what we're doing here, when we're turning left and we have a value of something, we're looping over and subtracting 1 that many times. Each time we're subtracting 1, we check if it's 0. No, we should move this on before. We subtract the value from it and then do the modulo operator to make sure we're between 0 and 99. Then we check the value is 0 and then count it. And then we move on. So this is where we can try the let's sample one more time. I was not getting any zeros.
What are we
Interesting.
doing wrong? Could we put a print statement in there to check our
Yes.
position again or our value?
Um,
Ooh, Kieran put a big old hinty hint in the Discord chat.
oh, I want to hear it.
Do you want do you want to know? He put a spoiler tag on it in Discord, which you can do by putting a double pipe on either side of something, by the way, if you want to. This is a learning space, so we're going to go ahead and say it. He says the magic is the difference between modulo and percent divided by percent integer division.
No. So, because it's interesting how we never hit 0 once. Oh, we're not doing enough. Like something is happening here. Uh, all right. Let's see. Oh, so this is why we can just do I equals 1. Direction is L. The value is, oh, so we know what it is. We're not looping over, we're just looping over the singular value of
Of the one,
68.
yeah.
So we're only, so we need to do
We need to seek that,
sequence.
yeah.
Yeah, we need to sequence of a length of this.
So that it gives us a little vector of like 1 to that number. And by the
Yes.
way, Emil's working in
So
R, so we are 1 indexed, not 0 indexed.
yes. So that's also very fun because every once in a while the puzzle assumes that it's one indexed, but a lot of times it assumes it's zero indexed. So every once in a while R just works really well compared to other languages by being zero indexed. So now I'm doing this. I'm
Oh,
going to remove this, but this is going to blow up when you do the real input.
that's true. Do we have a part two test number to tell us if we're right?
Yeah, let's see. It's at
Six.
6.
Oh, you guys, I think we did
So
it.
let's
Well,
try.
Emil did it. I take zero credit.
So then, and I'm just doing like Command C to like undo. And then we remove this intermediate. So now with that set. Oh, we actually, one more thing that we want to do is R1000. Because that was the warning.
There was a
And
warning. Yeah.
and we did sets for this. So let that was another. So we can also think of some of these things as unit tests.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes if you do these and you're doing them in a little bit longer format, like the later ones require a lot more code than these earlier ones. And yeah, so it's just like sometimes you actually write the unit test to make sure that you keep following all these um
Do
like
you do this like
hints.
pretty messily, or do you like
Oh,
keep
it's
everything
very
really
messy the
pretty?
first
Okay.
time.
I have your GitHub with your advent of code in our stats, and I'm going to pop that into the Discord server
Thank you.
channel just so that everybody can kind of like get a glimpse at the way that Emil works. And
And that is the
also,
cleaned up version,
yeah, I
like
think that it
1000%.
expect yourself to be a lot messier. I
Yeah.
am a hot mess, and my stuff, if I post it on
Yeah.
GitHub, will be equally hot and messy.
So it turned out to be right, and we're happy. Do we have time for me to show a top like an alternative way of handling day one or part one?
Absolutely. Yeah,
All right.
we have 12 minutes left and we are totally cool. We've got 41 people with us right now. Hello everybody. And we are all happy in the Discord chat.
So I'm just copying over to like not ruin anything. So then I will still split it out. I'll still split it out in directional values like this. We could do it with in like dplyr pipeline because the separate function from tidy out would also split it, but we already have it split, so we're saving some time. So what we can do is since these turns are happening one after another, we can do it as uh so we can do a time sum of this of the value that we then do the modulo on, because that's the same as like turning it back and forth. But we need to do the directions. So in here, we can say if else direction equals to L, then it's going to be a -1. Otherwise, it's a 1. Oh, so basically, what I'm doing now here is I'm taking the values and then I'm turning this direction into a vector of like basically a sign. So are we adding? Are we subtracting? So
And so
now
this
it's
is like, these are now clicks left or clicks right.
yes. And then we are taking the time sum of this. So we're just adding them one after another because that's essentially what we're doing. And
Okay.
then doing the modulo of that in one go. Because then we can do sum of res equals 0. And that might not be the right number.
Well, let's find out.
Was that the right? That seemed too low. That might
31
have.
is very
Yeah,
low.
that's definitely too low. But the def and so what are we doing? But let's say even if we did this version and it worked, which I'm messing up somehow. But even if we did this, even
Oh,
if we end,
there's a question in Slido. Thank you, Lauren, for
yes.
letting me know. It's what's the difference between the double percent, which is the modulo, and just 1% sign?
Oh, what is it? So 1%, I don't think does anything, does it?
I don't know if that is an operator.
That's not an operator. So that doesn't do anything.
Well, at least in R, which is what we're working
At
with right
least in R,
now.
yeah, right. So if you can do the question mark and then like the backtit around it because this is not a it's a function, but it's not one with values, like the like letter values. So it's hard to search for. But if you do this instead, you can find it. And here we see it's in here, and they're like describing what they do
Oh, there's
around it.
the what Kieran mentioned, which is like you have the modulo and then the like percent divided by percent y.
Yeah. Another thing you could do, but even if this option worked, that would have not worked because we needed to expand it in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because here we need to count individual clips. I'm sure there's a way if you cared for it. So instead of adding another for loop inside, you could have done the math based on like the position and the number of clicks to find out if it will pass, how many times it will pass. Um, so you could do something like so if we imagine the position is like
Oh,
is 40 and the value is 60 and we are minusing, right? So if we're in a left, we could do if value is larger than position. And then, but because we know if it's larger than position, we're passing it, right?
mm-hmm.
But if the value is then larger than 100, no, it needs to be larger than 100 plus like the depth between. So basically, so here we know that it goes over, it hits zero if it goes over 20, right? So, but it goes over twice if it's more than 120, and three times if it's more than 220, right? So you could do the math here.
Like divide it by 100 first and use that, like the number of
Yeah, like
times it goes into 100 as your
yeah, so like
first number.
yeah, so there is a way, like you could write this up to avoid the inner for loop somehow, right?
There's probably like 50 ways to do this and to get it right, which is the best and worst thing about coding.
Yeah,
I feel like when I was first learning programming, I was like, but what's the right answer? And nobody could tell me that. They're like, there's no right answer.
yeah,
There's if the code runs, it runs, right?
yeah.
I wanted to call out Kieran mentioned, and by the way, Kieran said he did not actually implement Modulo on his own. I was just taking him literally. And he was joking. He said that he used accumulate from the per package, which I think is an interesting
Oh,
solution
yeah.
because
So there's so many different ways of handling this,
yeah,
which
and
is
that'll
nice.
like sequentially do your cumulative sum by applying a function cumulatively over time.
Yeah.
And Noor was saying in the beginning too that she would have solved it by like creating a function that did your thing that you need to do in your for loop. Um, yeah. We're having a
But
conversation in the chat about modulo and the difference between R and
yeah,
Python operators.
like another thing you should do, which would be overkill in this situation, but a lot of admin of code likes these things where it's like a series of instructions, right? Like if the first character is L, you do something. If the first character is R, do something else. But sometimes they have like six different ones that do different things. What we could do in R, which I've done, which is very fun, is you take the input and then so here we have the, I'm just gonna shave off the, oh, it's so long. All right.
It is super long.
So just for like demonstration. So what we could do is we have the input that says this, but what we instead could do is modify it a little bit so you have direction value and then
Oh, 3 minutes left as a time
yeah.
check.
Oh, no. So you can modify it a little bit, right? So now suddenly it looks like a bunch of function calls,
Hmm.
right? So you could modify the input to turn it into what looks like a bunch of R function calls, define the functions R and L that does what we need, and then evaluate the input.
Ooh, I like it. It's almost
Yeah.
metaprogramming.
Yeah, so you can do that. Here it's overkill. And you need to do like some weird like bad up things where we need to because we need to now modify in global scope um like the count of zeros. But you
Right,
could do that. You could these two for loops we had, you could have put those inside an L function and an R function that then just run on itself. So instead of looping over the input, we're turning the input into code that when
right.
evaluated does the same thing. So that's
I
so
love
it
it.
was a great first day because
Yeah,
there's
this
a
was
lot
a
of
fantastic
different
day one
things to
and
do.
part one and two for our purposes. This is really fun. If you never did Advent of Code before, like I didn't, I hope that you are now excited to go play with it. And there's only 12 days this year, so it's a little bit less stressful. It used to be 30 days every single time, and people were, staying up past midnight to get things done as fast as they came out. And like, don't stress that much, but do have fun. Do come share in the Discord server what you're working on, and we can work on it together. And I'm so excited that you hung out with us today. We are going to be here next week with Alex Chisholm, who also happens to work here at Posit, to talk about all the different ways to publish Shiny apps in 2026. Because our Shiny app publication landscape has been changing so much and is evolving. And we would love to show you how that works in Positron and our studio and everything in between. Thank you for hanging out with us, Emil. This was
Of course.
fantastic.
It
I had
was a
so
pleasure.
fun.
It's fun having time for anyone. I'll try to do like if people are in Discord, I think people are sharing answers as
Yeah,
fun.
they are.
And it's very entertaining, but also like make sure to only spend however much time you have on it. First, it can
Yes.
take over.
Care for your mental health and
Yes.
your friends and family instead of spending all day on Advent of Code.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, I will see you on the Discord server. Come say hi, come share your code. Other than that, I'll see you next week or I'll see you on Thursday for the Data Science Hangout. Bye, everybody.